anxiety have a very big problem. I get it. I've come home to this. A long time ago, I had a female Airedale, sweetest dog in the world. And as I approached the house, pretty much every night, she'd be whining and crying. And when I opened the door, her greeting was a lot more than just happy to see me. She was overwhelmed. She acted like she was being saved. So I get past that, and then you notice the damage to the door and the carpet. This is tough business. You know, it was a long time ago, and back then we really didn't have good medications for anti-anxiety treatments. Behavior modification methods were just in their earliest stages. Well, you know, we did what we could. And I'll never forget how I felt trying to help my suffering dog, and how challenging it was to fix my house so much of the time. But now we've got modern technology. We've got something called a calmer canine. I'm going to tell you more about this in just a minute. But you can see, if you look at my dog, Miss America here, our family border collie, maybe you can see it. She's wearing this little special collar and a little vest, and I'll show you again a little bit later how the device fits on it. It's really slick. And by the way, in case we haven't met, I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. I'm a veterinarian. I'm residency trained in veterinary behavior medicine with a long career in general practice. I want to know if I'm serving the purpose here, if I'm giving you information that's valuable. So if you like what you're seeing, hit the heart button. And if you can hear me loud and clear, hit the wow button. That way I know that, you know, we're not having technical difficulties, because that happens even on a small scale. And by the way, if there's any question that you have about separation anxiety in your dog, by all means, interrupt me with that. I'll stop what I'm talking about and address that. This, by the way, is Tony. He's here for comic relief. Cats, by the way, can get separation anxiety, but the calmer canine is only for dogs. They present differently, and that's frankly a different discussion. So, separation anxiety. These dogs really have a big problem. They just are overwhelmed with panic. And you know, you can sometimes see indicators as you're ready to go, leave in the morning for work, and they start to pant and pace and follow you, and they get a little bit more agitated as you get a little bit closer to actually walking out the door. And when you get home, like my dog Hazel from, you know, a previous life, they're just overwhelmingly happy to see you. And frankly, that isn't quite normal. Well, you can learn a lot more about this, and I'll explain that in a little bit, because the Assisi website, calmercanine.com, that's C-A-L-M-E-R, the letter K, the number 9.com. It's got a great quiz. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So, a lot of people do things to prevent damage to their house because their dogs can just try to rip through the door and the window, among other problems. And so, well, many of these dogs get crated. And when you get a dog who is confined, because you're upside down, Miss America, did you not? Can you sit up and look at people? Here, sit up. Oh, you're such a silly girl. There you go. That's good. There. You can be with me this way. So many of these dogs, when they're crated, they get even more frantic. And people come home to find that their dogs have broken their teeth and nails and lacerated their lips. Crating is not the answer. And it's also a punishment. Forget that. Your dog is freaked out, and we don't punish fear. There's much, much better way. So let me show you a little bit about the calmer canine here. This is what it looks like in the box. Can you see that very well? It's kind of a nice picture. And I'm going to turn this around so you can see a little bit more of it. There it is, calmer canine anxiety treatment device. Okay, I'm going to explain more about that in a minute. Okay, so there we go. So let me tell you a little story about one of the dogs in this pilot study, because we've got some really good research. In fact, a paper was presented at the International Veterinary Behavior Meeting. Here are the proceedings just a couple of months ago in Washington, D.C. by one of my colleagues, Dr. Margaret Gruen, who did a very robust pilot study on this, and the results were really quite impressive. There was one dog in particular that really got my attention, in part because he was such a cute little fuzzy guy. He was adopted as a puppy, But when he got to the study, he was 10 years old, and he'd had his separation anxiety problem for a long time. Medications had been tried with pretty limited improvement, and his person was getting really, well, frankly, people get desperate. And when the pilot study came along, she was more than ready, and Camera Canine. And so if you have, again, please ask me questions if they come up. So anyway, this good lady took videos of Cooper, her little fuzzy 10-year-old guy, while she was gone. And she didn't realize it, but he spent a substantial amount of his time gazing out the window, hoping she'd come back any minute. And he would whine and cry. He didn't do any playing. He was kind of pacing and hypervigilant, scanning, looking around. I mean, you know, spend 8 or 10 hours, 5 days a week like that. It's just not the well-being we want for the pets that we love. So she shot some videos and found these things to be the case. And so let me ask you, if you're tuned into this thing and you notice that your dog is, well, that your neighbors are complaining about your dog barking, that can get you evicted, and that can get you, well, get you in trouble with animal control department in your area. Damage to your house can be really, really expensive. And some of these dogs just lose control of themselves and they urinate and defecate in the house. These are just not fun issues, and we've got to understand the cause, and we have to deal with the underlying anxiety. And there's real science behind this thing. Miss America, honey, will you sit back? You're resting. Here, can you sit up again? There we go. And I hope you can see from here, she's wearing this little collar that's part of the vest, and it goes around her chest and is very comfortable. And it has this Velcro patch right here where you put this device. And it's a targeted pulsed electromagnetic field that it puts out that targets a part of the brain called the amygdala. Now, let me show you what this looks like. Here's a cross section of a brain, and you can see we've got this circle around this area called the amygdala. The amygdala is known as the fear center of the brain. And, well, you know, we need fear because it can keep us alive. We find that people and dogs and mice, where a great deal of this research is done, when they have a lot of ramp-ups in their fear, the amygdala actually gets measurably bigger, significantly bigger, on MRI scans. Hello, Gaston. And so this is a neurologic problem. And the beauty of this Camera Canine device is that it puts out a microcurrent. The dog feels nothing. You can turn it on. There's nothing to be felt. It doesn't trigger what we call action potentials in the brain. In other words, it doesn't change the way the dog thinks. But on the cellular level, in the microglia, it causes them to produce more nitric oxide. It's a calcium that results from calcium binding to something called calmodulin. Well, with more nitric oxide, we get a decrease in inflammatory mediators and an increase in anti-inflammatory mediators. And one of the best parts is that it boosts the neurotransmitter serotonin, the same one we increase if we use medications. We don't need medications with this. And the feel-good neurotransmitter dopamine and endorphins. And the endorphins, you know, if you get the runner's high because you love to run for exercise, it's an internal natural opiate, and it's healthy. We need those things. And these dogs need to feel a heck of a lot better. So we get real value from this kind of thing. This is what it looks like on Miss America. Now, honey, can you sit up? I want to show people. There you go. And then you simply put this. Now, some dogs, not very many, but I've known a few who don't like the sound of Velcro. So if you're leaning on me, girlfriend, there you go. Can you see that? Looks like she's wearing a little halo or a tiara. I mean, her name is Miss America, so of course that's appropriate for her. And we're very fortunate that she does not have an anxiety problem, so we wouldn't need to use it on her. And of course, I don't have it turned on. And it's easy to switch on. You just push this button. You use it for 2 sessions, morning and evening, 15 minutes each. You don't have to time it. It turns itself off after 15 minutes. Has a lithium-ion battery. And when and after 4 to 6 weeks, the majority of these dogs are noticeably better. And back to this little guy, Cooper, he had, at the end of just 4 weeks, his negative behaviors, you know, the stuff like the crying and the whining and the watching at the window, and of course there were surveillance videos of this little fella, those were down almost 64%. And his positive behaviors, his relaxation, playing with his own toys by himself, grooming himself, up 97%. A really big difference. And by the way, there are several other videos on the Calmer Canine website that you can see these other cases. It's really quite impressive. And you know, behavior medicine, just like internal medicine or cardiology or surgery, it's all research-based. And I was convinced when I was attending that meeting that my colleague Dr. Gruen put on with the Calmer Canine. And so we're looking forward to some great success stories. And by the way, you know, if you think your dog has separation anxiety, what I'm going to encourage you to do is go to the Calmer Canine website, because they've got this quiz. It takes about 3 minutes. I've done it. It asks, you know, your dog's age and its breed and that sort of stuff, and about specific behaviors, and it'll give you a score at the end. Give you a pretty clear idea of what you're dealing with. But in veterinary behavior practice, which is what I do for my day job, well, we rely heavily on videos. You know, the pet parents' observations mean a great deal, but who's watching when they're gone, right? And so if people want to spend $100, which is really all it takes, you can go to the internet and you can get like a Nest Cam surveillance system. You get 2 cameras. You can get an app to put on your phone. So if you're worried about leaving your dog home, you can drive away for just 15 or 20 minutes, and as you're doing it, you can have your passenger, don't do this yourself while you're driving, watch the app and see what the heck your dog's doing. And if your dog's tearing your house apart, you turn around and go back home. But there is no substitute for videos to show us what a dog with separation anxiety is really trying to do. So, so do that, okay? And I've got a couple of comments here. Oh, Kira, is it easy to position on the pet? Yeah, it's real easy. Let me just show you. I'll take this thing off. Here, honey, will you stand up for me? That's a big girl. You've got this band that goes around the dog's chest like this, okay? And it has a little flapper here in the front that's Velcro. And what attaches to this is the part of the vest, they call it a vest, that goes around the dog's neck. And it's like a collar. And it just closes with Velcro right here. And so it takes a minute to put on. And then you've got the loop, the Calmer Canine, and you simply stick it there. And for dogs who are fussy about the noise of Velcro, and again, there are some, you don't have to torture them with it. You don't need the vest. In that case, for 15 minutes, you would simply hold the loop right here behind the dog's neck. And the beauty of it is that this is a targeted pulsed electromagnetic field, meaning that these little electromagnetic waves are targeted at the amygdala, right there, and that's where they are focused on that little beam, and we get that by the positioning of the vest. So it works very well. And the science is very strong, and you know, as a medical person, that's what gets my attention right away. But if your dog has separation anxiety, let's do a couple of other things that are pretty easy to handle at home. Beyond simply improving the way the neurologic system functions with the Calmer Canine, you want to ignore dogs as you leave and return. And that is not how our human relationships work, are they? I mean, if you have a family, anybody leaves home, there's a hug and a kiss, I love you, drive safely, right? And of course, we feel the same bond and affection for our pets, and we want to do the same thing. I want to give them a hug and a kiss as we walk out the door. But dogs are members of a different species. And when we do observational research of dogs in their free-living social groups, we find that some of these relationships are really pretty different. If you have a dog, like my girl Miss America here, who's behaviorally well-adjusted, you really wouldn't need to understand these rules of canine social hierarchical structure. But if your dog is anxious, that dog needs security of something that they innately understand, and they need it routine, consistent. And so for a dog with separation anxiety, you want to give life just as they would have it if they lived with other dogs, with a canine leader who understood these structures. So your job as the leader is to leave the territory, that is your home, just as a canine leader would, which is absolutely no communication at all. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have all the warmth and enjoyment and cuddling and snuggling that you want and play with your dog anytime you want it, except when you're leaving and when you return, because the canine leader doesn't have anything to say at those times, And the subordinates, the lower status dogs in the group, and they certainly have a hierarchy, they don't expect it. And if you have an anxious dog and you give that dog something that isn't canine specific, instead it's a human kind of behavior in that context, you can actually worsen their anxiety. In part because when they're anxious and they're freaking out, any response from the leader is actually considered by the dog to be a validation, and we certainly don't want to validate the anxiety. So let me see. Is it easy to position? And let's see, what else is there? Here you go. Okay, good. That's a comment. Richard. Oh, excellent to see you, Richard. And how long does it take to become effective? The research has shown that it's usually 4 to 6 weeks, although there have been cases where dogs feel much better in several days. So, you know, the thing is, I would suggest going at least 4 weeks, twice daily, 15 minutes each time. And, you know, it's not any real work. You know, I'm just sitting here with Miss America, and I could be answering my email with her. I could be watching TV or reading, you know. So it's easy to do. She's just sitting right here next to me. And then if I found that after 4 weeks my dog was noticeably better, I could quit at that point. And some of them are going to, are going to have no further need for treatment. And others, you might see them start to backslide, which is another great reason that you want to shoot some video, at least weekly or monthly, because you want to keep a monitor on this stuff. So this loop, the Calmer Canine loop, is something that you can simply put the vest back on the dog and do twice daily 15-minute sessions for another week or two. And very often that gets them back on the straight and narrow again. And so this is something that you wouldn't just use it for 4 to 6 weeks and be done with it. You might need it again, okay? So this is something that it's got a lifetime of value. And the lithium-ion battery, there's a little door in the back here, you just pop this open if you need to replace it. It's not rechargeable, but you can go to any places where batteries are sold and you can get a replacement lithium-ion battery. The number, you know, it's like a part number, you know, it's right on the battery, and you can get those pretty much anywhere. And the other point that I would make in terms of setting a dog up for success is until you see the Calmer Canine really start making a difference, I would advise against leaving your dog home alone, because all they're doing is rehearsing these ramp-ups in arousal and getting repeatedly freaked out, and the problem actually gets worse. And so I encourage my clients to take their dog to a doggy daycare service during the time that we're expecting treatment to start making a difference. Because we don't want our dog to go through this, we don't want our house to go through this, and we certainly don't want the problem to worsen. So I'm a big advocate for setting them up for success, and of course, avoid crating. It's just not our friend. Want to learn more information, or if you think that your dog might benefit from a Calmer Canine, go to the Calmer, C-A-L-M-E-R, letter K, number 9.com website, and you can order one if you like to, or you can take the quiz. What other comments do we have? Richard, yeah, so we're going to, at the end of this Facebook Live, Richard, we're going to put a link on my Facebook page and on the Assisi Facebook page. It's Assisi Animal Health, like St. Francis of. I have a special affection for that name. I went to Assisi back on a trip to Europe, and I spent a lot of time in Italy. It was back in 1989. And spent a few days in Assisi, and I just bonded to St. Francis. I mean, it was just like, it wasn't just touristy for me. I came away, frankly, kind of different, and named one of my sons Francis for Francis of Assisi. So anyway, that's what the name of the company is. It's Assisi Animal Health, and they make the Calmer Canine. That's that box there. And you can, but we'll put the full website address where you can order, take the quiz. We'll put that stuff on the Facebook page when we're done. So I hope this is helpful to people. Any other questions? I think that's all we have. And if there's anything people want to ask, you're welcome to go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Dr. Jeff Nickel, or you can go to the Assisi Facebook page, ASSISI, facebook.com/Assisi. And by the way, if you want to subscribe to Facebook Live notifications for future sessions on separation anxiety, because we plan to do others, there's a follow button in the comments section on your Facebook page. And hit that, and you'll automatically get notifications of the next time we're planning to do one of these things. So I hope this is helpful. And I know that for dogs with separation anxiety, this is going to be helpful. This is a new product. I have not had a chance to use it in my practice yet. They were able to just ship me these early ones. It's going to be available in just a couple of weeks. You can order one now, and I'll be using them in my practice because modern science, that's how we treat disease nowadays. So thank you for watching. Tony, Gaston, Miss America, say goodbye to our friends.